Today's show is brought to you by edibles. Edibles are the leading creative catalyst of this podcast. What you're about to hear is part 5 of a multi-part series on no-holds-barred fighting in America. I'm your host, Patrick Euclid. Previously on the Cage of History. The different ownerships of the Ultimate Fighting Championships, Horry and Gracie and Art Davie, the first ownership, sold it to Bob Meyrowitz of the Semaphore Entertainment Group out of New York. And then Bob Meyrowitz owned it at the worst time, because that's when you had Senator John McCain, who was rallying all of the other senators, athletic commissioners, politicians, and legislators to do away with this barbaric sport, this human cockfighting. It was referred to as a lot of different things. And poor Bob had actually went out to Las Vegas to plead with the Athletic Commission and find out what changes could be made so that it would become a more acceptable sport. And again, what you had to look at is all these boxing commissions were headed up by boxing people. And so even when this new kid on the block is coming, it was a threat to the boxing industry. So a lot of things took place that
I put
probably were
an abnormal brain
unethical.
into a 7.5 foot long,
Episode 5.
54-inch wide
Out of
gorilla.
control.
Is that what you're telling me?
The first time that the Ultimate Fighting Championship would acknowledge the concept of weight class, an event themed around the counterintuitive matchups of smaller competitors against super heavyweight counterparts, was created. David versus Goliath. To hell with competitive matchups and strategy and technique. This was blatant appeal to the demographic of the bloodthirsty. They booked a venue in Bayamon, Puerto Rico, where, allegedly, actual cockfighting was going on just down the street, and where, in any case, they have a distinct historical record of accomplishments in and appreciation for general pugilism. But that was not to be the case for the UFC. As far as I know, they've never done another event in Puerto Rico, and for all I know, and so in my version of history, that's how it is, there has never been another MMA event there since. They Trotsky'd the sport like a usurped Egyptian pharaoh. A week before the event, an injunction brought them against the Minister of Sport in a Puerto Rican courtroom where they saw an approximately 0% chance of victory. The SEG legal team immediately filed an appeal to have the case moved to federal court, winning one day before UFC 8 was scheduled to take place. By this point, there was a siege mentality cementing itself in the minds of all involved. Bob Meyrowitz and company were being told to get the fuck out at every turn, seeing their territory shrink under the wave of mainstream opposition. But for some reason, whatever reason, they were never going to let go. They were riding this train until the track ran out. I guess it must have been potentially enormously profitable. An entire unregulated sport they were trying to establish. But it was like laying down the track as they rode it, on unstable earth. When they'd gone back to Colorado for the Ultimate, the Denver mayor prevented any access to prestigious arenas like McNichols, where the first event had been held, or the National Western Events Arena, instead relegated back to Mammoth Gardens, a place Big John McCarthy has described on multiple occasions as a complete shithole. Bob Meyrowitz and Mayor Wellington Webb both appeared on the Today Show on the topic, with the establishment talking head vigorously decrying the pointless barbarism that the UFC had been peddling in his otherwise perfectly peaceful city. Meyrowitz's only defense was to ask, innocently, "Have you even ever seen the show?" No. Dude admitted he had not. And while the Puerto Rican government, incensed that the UFC had the legal right to fulfill contracts that were not against the law, made steps to ensure that they would never again set foot on their island. The people of Bayamon were having a fucking great time. Don Fry greeted with boos from the Puerto Rican crowd, whose hometown favorite is a 41-year-old cab driver, Thomas Ramirez, looking a bit like Fat Albert, sporting a discipline of Paquachan, whatever the fuck that is, 410 pounds. Double the weight of Fry at 206. Don Fry, a pro boxer and college wrestler. The tale of this tournament would shape up as a showdown between a light and a heavy fighter. And the action begins. The eponymous David and Goliath. Don Fry calmly takes the center. They both eat a jab. Oh, Don Fry clips him. Down goes Ramirez. He's unconscious against the chain link. A familiar face from events past in the background. In the corner of the B stands Seven. He is good and out. A former Arizona State wrestler. Eyes open. Boxer and judoka. And training partner of the Ultimate Fighting Champion. Don Fry calmly pacing. When announced, he'd stare over his shoulder at his opponent with a sinister sneer under his Magnum P.I. mustache. He looked like the bad guy from a bad western. Coming in at just over 200 pounds, he was one of the Davids, meaning I suppose that he could cut to cruiserweight. 1993 Canadian, the breakout Goliath, amateur super heavyweight boxing champion, was a gentleman giant known as Gary Goodridge. In a black gi, towers above his opponent Paul Herrera. His smaller, cockier opponent in the opening round was a California wrestler and stablemate of Tank Abbott's team. And the action begins. The Huntington Beach Bad Boys. Herrera sprints across the cage and goes for the double. He immediately shot a double leg takedown with reckless abandon. Gary Goodridge has him tied up here. Oh, and elbows. He's elbowing him. Oh my goodness, he's unconscious. Goodridge trapping both his arms in a sort of upside down and backward crucifix position. He has elbowed and rapidly raining elbows into his temple in a devastating display of dominance. Into the dark lands, sending his consciousness reeling into the realm of wind and ghosts. He jumped on it as soon as he could, but good grief. The camera crew couldn't cut away quick enough. I think he suffered about 8 unnecessary elbows to the head as he flailed about like a rag doll in a grip of the giant Gary Goodridge. Don Fry, looking like Tom Selleck's meaner younger brother, stares down the ex-pro boxer Sam Adkins. Sam Adkins, a Goliath, was, on paper, an adequate heavyweight boxer. Predator, Don Fry, now greeted with whistles. National Golden Glove silver medalist Sam Adkins, fighting out of Houston, Texas. Considerably larger, 265 pounds. Don Fry with gloves, Adkins no gloves, only hand wraps. Big-titted ring girls in Puerto Rico. And the action begins. Don Fry takes the center quickly. Spry. Fry sporting a southpaw stance. Sam Adkins lunging with a jab. Poor technique there. But his skill set did not translate well into the octagon trademark. Pawing now. Oh, single leg takedown from Tom Selleck's meaner younger brother, who's beating and pounding the back of the head of Adkins. He followed the storied tradition of strikers who... Maybe he tapped there. Clubs here from Don Fry, just bashing the shit out of Sam Adkins, who is maintaining an overhook for no reason. He's trying to defend with his legs at least now. Bewildered by what had just befell them. Big right hand. Big John McCarthy stops the action there. Looked at their opponent in disbelief of their abilities. Not sure why. As though defeated by a D&D wizard. Adkins absolutely helpless on the ground. With sorcery from source books his store doesn't stock. Adkins is a bloody mess. Gary Goodridge would not benefit from a similar situation in his semifinal fight. And the action begins. In fact, he was facing something of a wizard himself. Bowlander playing it safe on the outside as Goodridge stalks with that Kimpo stance. He goes for a left hook. Bowlander shoots in. He's shot right into a guillotine hold here against the fence. Goodridge is attempting to crank the neck, but his head has gotten free. He's got an overhook on the left side. Pinned against the fence is Jerry Bowlander by the big man. Oh, he turns him out. Now he's in the center. And the David representing the Lions Den. Gary Goodridge has a standing back. Oh, he drops him to the canvas after he attempts a suplex, which was defended by Bolander. Turning 22 years old 2 days before the event. Now, Gary Goodridge, inside control. This kid had been training with Ken Shamrock's team for 6 months before going pro. He's got proper grips to pass with Leon Belly. Let's see how he handles this here. Something of a prodigy, you might say. His name was Jerry Bolander, and the Goliath that he defeated in the opening round was a former pro football player whose sole strategy was to tackle his opponent into the chain link and attempt to crush the air out of his lungs. They both have a hook over the head and under the arm on the far side. It was not particularly effective, though I recall him claiming that it would revolutionize the sport. Goodridge attempting to create some space. No luck. He might not have actually had the audacity to say that. I'm just saying I remember that for what that's worth. Anyway, due to the disparity in size, Bolander had a hell of a time choking him out. Goodridge is stalling here. Bolander squirming to get free. Goodridge not attempting to pass. He could be going for a key lock, but based on the camera work, I can't fucking see that side. I see an ass and a black gi, almost going the distance before securing a guillotine. Nope, he's not attempting to work for that. They'd put a 10-minute time limit on the event. They're locked up. Bolander's arms are safe. So that's a new development. Goodridge. Now, while Goodridge had just wrecked his first-round foe, fast. Here we go. He passes. Nope. Back into the guard. Jerry Bolander had grappled with the bullneck juggernaut for 9 minutes. A botched pass from Gary Goodridge into mount. Didn't go knee on belly. Oh, he gets reversed. Swept here by Bolander. Bolander in the half guard. A tight half guard of Gary Goodridge. A punch over the top for Bolander. Oh. Goodridge attempting to buck him off, but Bolander lands a couple of punches. A headbutt. A punch to the back of Gary Goodridge's head. David has Goliath pinned here as he's passed into full mount. He's looking to separate and punch the face of Gary Goodridge, putting pressure with the chin on the eye. Chin on the eye here. Punches to the ribs. Oh, Goodridge attempting to sweep. Bolander maintains the mount. Punches to the face here for Bolander. Bolander landing a couple of crosses. A good punch to the back of the head, thumping the ear of the big man Goodridge, who's trapped under the mount of the David in this story. Oh, Goliath attempting to throat choke. He scoots his hips out. He's reversed the position now into Bolander's guard. Goliath has muscled his way out of the mount. Bolander a little too relaxed here. Oh, big punch from Goodridge. Oh, big punch over the top again. Goodridge attempting to smother. A big hand misses. Big overhand right. High guard now for Bolander. He stacks him up here. Stacked against the fence is Bolander. Oh, knee down for Goodridge. He's pinned his head against the fence. We've seen this work as a submission before, as a neck crank. Goodridge grips on the fence as Bolander's attempting to spin out. This is chaos here on the bottom. The small man attempting to go for the ankle, but he can't quite get it. He spins back out. Gary Goodridge attempting to stomp. Gary Goodridge attempting to smash the small man who's attempted to lock up the ankle. Gary Goodridge has a tight grip on the fence. He will not be swept down to the mat here. He is attempting to stomp the head of Bolander. He reaches down to punch. 3 good punches land, and Big John McCarthy has stepped in to stop the action. As it's a TKO victory for the big Canadian, to the elation of the Puerto Rican crowd. The tournament final featured the first fight in a trilogy that would eventually unfold, and all three are quality action bouts.
And the action begins
between Don Fry and Gary
Don
Goodrich.
Fry in the southpaw stance, pawing out with jabs at Gary Goodrich, who has lost his gi.
Although their initial encounter was special,
Between rounds of the tournament.
being the final round of both of their UFC debuts,
Quick right jabs,
and
get himself into the clinch against the fence. Don Fry has
an up and down,
kneeing the legs.
back and forth fight.
Goodrich against the fence here. Goodrich turns him around and is taking his back in the standing clinch. A back elbow from Don Fry. He's now punching him in the headlock position. Goodrich forces him forward, but Don Fry up to his feet. Goodrich lifts him out again and attempts a soccer kick, but Don Fry stands and defends. Back in the upper body clinch, they push away. Don Fry back to the southpaw stance. He's feinting. Oh! A 1-2 from Goodrich misses, and they're back in the clinch now. Don Fry punching the body, kneeing the thigh. Gary Goodrich locked up against the fence here, attempting to punch over the top. Don Fry's uppercutting to good effect. And hooks. Oh, Gary Goodrich has taken them back again, and he's reversed pushed Don Fry against the fence. Don Fry attempting the guillotine. Knees from Gary Goodrich, who's pinned Don Fry against the fence here. Oh, big double leg is stopped by Don Fry, hooking the fence. He's dropped now. In a standing choke, he's rolled off. Don Fry now in the open guard. Nope. In the half guard, in the open half guard, he's punching, and Goodrich is done. TKO victory. Don the Predator Fry is the winner of UFC 8.
To the audience in this early day of NHB that followed only the UFC.
And the action begins. Chemo charges across the center with a big knee.
This main event matchup made little sense.
Shamrock drops him into side control as Chemo holds onto an overhook on his head.
Except as a holdover until the ultimate winner was ready to compete again in a rematch for the Super Fight title.
He's got an arm-in guillotine from the side. It's nothing. He's going to let that go. Attempting to pin Shamrock's head down as Chemo.
Chemo had only ever fought once in the U.S., losing to Hoist Gracie.
Shamrock controlling Chemo's head by the hair, pinning him in side control here. Nope. Chemo's got half guard.
And he seemed to be riding in on the coattails of that single exciting fight to carry his credibility.
Chemo attempting to grapevine the leg out of Shamrock and scoot out the back door, but he doesn't make it.
When in reality, he'd fought a few more times in Japan.
Shamrock controls him with some punches to the ribs.
Defeating Pat Smith twice there, in 2 different promotions.
Ken Shamrock is refusing to put the knee down on the side that's trapped, trying to sneak it up and pass the guard of Chemo Leopoldo.
So, he was quality competition, with name recognition.
Shamrock sneaking up. He's actually looking to set up a leg submission here, as he's posturing up slowly, inch by inch here. The ankle is exposed. Not sure if Shamrock's corner can see it or not. He's pushing the leg down, acting as though he would pass into mount, but he's not doing it.
He was still wet behind the ears when it came to his grappling skill.
Chopping hands to the back of Shamrock's neck from Chemo, they're ineffective.
but he was a feared up-and-comer in the sport.
He's stretching out that leg. It's Chemo.
With enough natural ability to overcome this deficit, at least temporarily.
Now, Shamrock in 3/4 guard. He's past the full mount. Chemo's covered up now for the punches. He's trying to turn. Shamrock almost takes his back in the scramble, but Chemo is out. He's in the half guard of Shamrock now. And headbutts from Chemo.
Allegedly,
Shamrock attempting to back out.
he'd gone to the Gracie Academy in Torrance after his loss to Hoyce,
Another headbutt from Chemo.
and had asked for lessons.
As the crowd begins to chant in his favor, a third headbutt from Chemo. Not sure how effective they are,
But was turned down by Horry.
as Shamrock is holding down his upper body, trapping him in his loose half guard. Chemo attempting to eye gouge, smothering and covering the face of Shamrock. A big punch, but Shamrock bucks him off. He's back into the closed guard, postured way high, as Shamrock turns out for a leg. He's laced the ankle
If he hadn't been,
through. He's got nothing as Chemo rolls out.
he might have become Super Fight champion.
Chemo's taking Shamrock's back now. Shamrock rolls out again for the leg. Now he's got it gripped up. He's straightening it out.
But he had been.
Chemo's in danger. He's not escaping properly. Attempting to push the arm off with his leg. He needs to roll back and push Ken Shamrock's whole body off. He's attempting to crowd, which is actually pulling tighter on his hamstring.
And he did not.
Oh, Chemo doesn't know how to escape this. If Shamrock can get that leg straightened out. He's got him. Chemo's tapping. Knee-bar submission to Ken Shamrock, the Super Fight champion.
UFC 8, David vs. Goliath, had delivered, despite its ridiculous premise, and the ridiculous amount of pushback they'd overcome. In many ways, it was their most successful show. It had one of the highest attendances of the Semaphore-era events at 13,000, and had done a phenomenal number of pay-per-view buys despite a fervent campaign against it, coming out of the state of Connecticut Council of Churches and Synagogues, featuring Senator Joseph Lieberman and Connecticut Attorney General Richard Blumenthal, whose office wrote to every pay-per-view provider possible, asking them not to televise the event in the name of decency. Cablevision had acquiesced, becoming the first to give the UFC boycott momentum. Following their 2 courtroom struggles to put on UFC 8 in Bayamon, UFC 9 would also suffer litigation, with SEG forced to argue their case in court on the very day of the event. After coming to the conclusion that illegalizing headbutts and closed-fist punches to the head would prevent the event from being classifiable as boxing, thus falling outside the jurisdiction of the Michigan Athletic Commission, Bob Meyrowitz agreed to the judge's terms and walked out of the courtroom as fast as possible. It was 4:30 in the afternoon. Once they were in the open air, on the steps of the courthouse, I imagine, Big John McCarthy, bewildered, asks Bob Meyrowitz how in the hell they are supposed to run the event under this rule set, and, allegedly, he responds, quote, "I didn't say there wasn't going to be any punching. I just said I'd make it illegal. When they punch, you're going to tell them, that's illegal, and you're going to have to fine them eventually. When they have to pay that fine, only God knows." End of quote. Now, Battlecade Extreme Fighting had already held their second event, somewhere in the region of Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Another fight city, with a history of deep enthusiasm for fistic festivity. And I think it might have been on what we here in the States call native land, First Nation land, of the Kanawake tribe. So, if that's the case, what an insult to their sovereignty it was when the Montreal authorities arrested the referee, the announcer, the matchmaker, and several of the competitors for participating in this political pariah of pugilism. UFC 9, Motor City Madness from Detroit, Michigan, home state of Dan Severn, the ultimate champion, would be the first card not to feature the tournament format, opting instead for single matchup bouts, with the super fight title on the line for the main event. I'm not sure if this was part of the arrangement made in court, I don't believe so, or if it was just Art Davies' matchmaking decision, which is much more likely. But backstage, the competitors are informed of the court case and the phantom fine for face punching, and everyone seems to get the gist, wink nudge, except for the main event fighters, Ken Shamrock and Dan Severn. Now, Ken was accustomed to pancrase style fighting where only open hand palm strikes are permitted to the head, so it might not have been a big deal to him anyway, but he refused to punch on moral grounds. Allegedly, when he is informed of the situation, he tells Big John McCarthy, quote, "John, I can't do that. My father has a boys' home, and I can't set that example for those boys. I'm not going to stand there and knowingly punch illegally just because I know I won't have to pay the fine." End quote. And here's Dan Severn on his thoughts about it. Quote, "The rules said if you violate the rules you will be warned, which is funny because I said, how many warnings do you get before you're penalized? And they just said you would be warned. I was looking for a black and white answer, so I just went out to see the first couple of matches, and I think there were 4 or 5 headbutts in a row, and I just kept hearing warning, warning, warning. Well, it wasn't being enforced in the first match, but maybe in my match it would be." End quote. Indeed, it wasn't enforced in the first match. Untelevised. Steve Nelmark versus some guy. Ty Bowden, maybe? I don't know. It wasn't enforced in the second match either. Cal Worsham versus Zane Frazier, much fitter looking this time around. People still have signs in the audience about Gracie. Gracie number 1. We want Gracie. It's UFC 9, but I had to let go. The story isn't over for them. Something similar must have happened with the Japanese. Sakuraba. I don't know. Can't postulate on it now. As Nasty Zane Frazier. Nasty Zane Frazier looking like Arsenio Hall, Cal Worsham, Jawhead, wearing a nasal strip, and it wouldn't be enforced in any other match that evening either. And the action begins. The audience, I imagine, would riot over disqualification for punching someone in the face in a UFC fight, for fuck's sake. Zane Frazier circling out to his left. Cal Worsham is in the center, but he's tentative to engage. Comes in with a low kick. It's sort of a feint. Zane Frazier defends accordingly, but backs out of range. Frazier wearing the gloves. Worsham bare-knuckled. Zane Frazier leaps in with the right hand, but gets nothing. They'd already developed deep expectations from the previous installments of the product. Zane Frazier circling out on the outside to his left, with the promise of face punching proved to be the pillar of the presentation. I mean, someone was getting punched in the face, alright? Zane Frazier feinting in. They were going to do their best and backing out to keep it inside the cage. Comes in again, much taller fighter. Oh, he leaps in with a knee, the left knee which lands. It stunned Cal Worsham, who's backing away. Worsham goes in for the double. He takes him down into Zane Frazier's half guard. He begins to headbutt. Oh, a big knee from Worsham. Elbows. Worsham attempting to just hold down Zane Frazier in this half guard here. A command to work from Big John the referee. And work Worsham does as he works Zane Frazier's face with left hands. A tight half guard.
Zane Frazier has a left overhook, but he's not doing much to escape. Worsham is warned for headbutting, which he has been doing a few times now. Big elbow, nice punch. Oh, he passed, but Zane Frazier has recovered half guard, not doing much with it. Just holding an over-under on Cal Worsham, who's punching to the back of the head. A headbutt from Cal Worsham. Oh, another headbutt from Worsham. Punches from Worsham. Left hands from the top, but he collapses back down atop Zane Frazier. Punches over the top from Cal Worsham. Oh, Zane Frazier's tapping now. Tapping out of frustration. The strikes. Cal Worsham is pumped. Mark Schultz is a last-minute replacement for Dave Beneteau, who'd broken his hand in training. 1984 Olympic gold medalist Mark Schultz has agreed to take this fight on 1 day's notice. That may be a slight exaggeration. No big deal, considering comparatively that SEG had just been defending the right to even hold the show earlier that very afternoon. Big Daddy Goodrich in the black gi once more. So this would be in no way abnormal. The classic grappler versus striker dilemma, except that Schultz is Beneteau's training partner. Can Schultz get Goodrich to the ground? I'm gonna guess not difficult to do, and I assume responsible for breaking his hand. So what, these wrestlers are working out and it's like, hey, can you help me out with this ultimate fighting thing? And the action begins. Schultz says, cool story, bro, let me just break your shit and take your spot. Upright, leaning back, attempting to bait a punch from Gary Goodrich. Set his hips low here. So these guys know each other through the Olympic community. He's a little too planted. Goodrich a little too planted as he attempts to exchange jabs. Schultz was a gold medalist in freestyle wrestling during the same games that Dan Severn sat as an alternate on the team. Pushing Goodrich to the cage, he slams him to the mat as Goodrich attempts an overhook and tries to choke. But he doesn't have his hands connected. So, he's a bad motherfucker. Here in the half guard of Gary Goodrich, multiple-time world champion. Goodrich has a grip of his own gi, his gi pants, locking up the guard. Extremely high-level competitor. And he will not let go of this overhook here, which Schultz can just peel off as he's attempting to do now. He'd learned a little bit of jiu-jitsu from Hickson and Pedro Sauer, but Goodrich pushing away on the fence. He was essentially a one-dimensional super athlete who could... Schultz attempting to free his neck. Goodrich has a grip of his own gi, no doubt, on the inside. Put his opponent on their back at will, and not much else. So he's gripped his gi with both hands now. And he is really squeezing on Schultz's neck, who's now knuckling the floating ribs of Gary Goodrich, hitting the kidneys, punching away for the soft organs. To borrow a phrase from boxing that would ring, and sometimes still does in the banter of many a pundit. Putting his hands on the throat now. Styles make fights. Really attempting to get this overhook released. The dynamic at this stage was decided by the nature of the accolades of the competitors. Now, the wrestler has freed himself. If they were decorated strikers. Still stuck here in the half guard of Gary Goodrich. A knockout on the feet was going to be their sole strategy. He's attempting some kind of gi choke perhaps, or just attempting to hold down the big man. Likewise with the BJJ black belt. A big punch to the ribs from Mark Schultz. Their accomplishments in that isolated combat sport. Schultz can be reversed here, but Goodrich just releases his grip and explodes. Signaled submission on the mat with no chance of a standing victory. He does not detect this. He is just holding on for dear life here against the gold medalist freestyle wrestler who is punching the ribs. Wrestling on his right side. Goodrich attempting to ignore this offense.
Completed that trinity.
Goodrich locking up a grip on the man, using his
with
gi
the techniques to control the nature of the fight, but
and an underhook, a powerful underhook on one side. Oh, but he is getting blasted to the body.
not many to finish it.
Schultz attempting to free his leg here.
Considering his championship mindset,
With some more punches to the body.
and easy access to jiu-jitsu, Schultz would have made exponential increases in his abilities. But that would never happen, considering his employers at the Brigham Young University wrestling program and their incredibly conservative climate.
Goodrich locking Schultz down like a tackle maggot. He's got a nice little grapevine on the leg.
Cage fighting was
On his figure four. And Schultz is not attempting to fight that.
kind of taboo, only reserved for those who
The question is, are these shots doing any damage to the ribs of Gary Goodrich?
don't want to keep their current career during that difficult transition.
Short punch from Mark Schultz upstairs as he's attempting to pin Goodrich's right arm on his free side. There appears to be a little cut here from Goodrich somewhere there, and Schultz is pressing on it, attempting to pass. He's passing the side control on the right side here. Nice move from Schultz there. Goodrich now with an overhook on the top with his right arm. He's completed the grip on his gi pants, on the inside of his gi pants here. So it's a similar situation. Schultz will need to free his head. Oh, the grip has come out. Now he's readjusted it. Oh, some good knees to the body from Schultz.
The money was not stellar at this stage of the game, and the gold medal he'd already earned made the
There's a cut in the cheek or something like that on Gary Goodrich.
peak of performance here a dim, glowing glimmer of an aspiration by comparison.
Schultz is effectively stuck here as Goodrich has gripped his... Alright, the big John McCarthy has stood the fighters up as there was a definite stalemate in the gi, avoiding the side control by gripping his pants with two solid overhooks. There was no action possible there. Oh, okay. There's also a cut in between the eyes of Mark Schultz, which Gary Goodrich is attempting to open up with jabs, but another deep double shot, shooting a deep double, rather, is Mark Schultz, who puts Goodrich back on his back, and we are in the closed guard of Gary Goodrich now, knuckling the ribs with his left arm. Goodrich opened the guard momentarily. Schultz passed into half guard on the right side. He appears to be strong on that side.
Schultz made the cautious and wise with the UFC's avalanche of litigation
Schultz attempting to knuckle open some space.
decision to retire.
He's feeling the guard now of Goodrich. A good technique.
After only a single bout in the sport.
And he's posturing up on his left leg and pushing down on his right shoulder. He's going to try to slide his left leg through to pass through to side control again. Goodrich attempting to punch. It's not effective though. He does not have the space for it. Neither man space enough to punch. And Gary Goodrich is controlling the pace of this fight with his gi. He has a good half guard technique here. Yeah, a lockdown to be certain on the leg of Mark Schultz, but he's not using it to proper effect. He's not actually locking the knee to the mat. Oh, good punches, open knuckle punches from Mark Schultz to Gary Goodrich's face here. All right, Big John McCarthy stopped the action here. I guess we're checking on a cut on Gary Goodrich, who is a bit bloody. A grinding, grueling pace here due to the gi gripping from Gary Goodrich. Well, that's a gulp. Mark Schultz looking a bit tired, listening to Dave Beneteau in his corner, whose hands appear to be intact. All right, Dr. Richard Istrico taking a look now. Some people are shaking their heads. Okay, it's not a deep problem. Off to the side of the eye. I gotta towel it off again here. Alright, and we're gonna restart the action here. Gary Goodrich now getting his third chance to land a big punch. before the inevitable double leg takedown from Mark Schultz, which should be coming shortly. Schultz with a tiny inside low kick. Goodrich is complaining about the shoes. Oh, big step-in jab from Mark Schultz. Schultz attempting to keep Goodrich at bay. Oh, he shoots in. A big slam into side control from Mark Schultz here. A big knee from Mark Schultz. Gary Goodrich recovers half guard. He's not using the lockdown this time. Short, chopping shots from Mark Schultz here. Goodrich breaking down the posture of Mark Schultz here, but not attempting to attack, just stalling out until referee John McCarthy gives them a chance to land another big punch. Warnings to work from John McCarthy. Alright, now Mark Schultz attempting to pass through the half guard, getting blocked by the hand of Gary Goodrich. Gary Goodrich attempting the Ezekiel choke, being defended now by Mark Schultz, who passes on the left side. Oh, he's in 3/4 guard now. Just needs to separate a little. That wrestling shoe is giving him problems. Goodrich is looking for a calf crank, a toe hold here. Schultz does not seem at all concerned. Schultz attempting the head and arm choke, but Goodrich slips out and they're back in half guard now. Quite a bit of blood pouring from somewhere, as again Gary Goodrich has broken the posture of Mark Schultz and has gripped his own gi to prevent him from pulling out of here. Goodness, quite a bit of blood. Mark Schultz here has passed into full mount and has grapevine out the legs of Gary Goodrich, flattening out to the mat. Schultz quite patient here, attempting to defend the Ezekiel choke. Gary Goodrich attempted to sweep. It's unsuccessful. Schultz is postured up, and he's punching now, lefts and rights, running crosses. Oh, about 30 punches here. Goodness. None of these punches really landed, though. He's attempting to smother. He postures up again, and he's punching again. A chain of punches. Goodrich attempting to buck him off. It's not successful. Mark Schultz is sitting up here, attempting to attack the arm now. Mark Schultz going for the left arm, and referee John McCarthy stops the fight. Schultz is raising his arms. Oh, there's going to be an overtime round here. Oh, Schultz is now hands on knees, taking deep breaths here, getting ready to fight. Oh, photographer's getting in the octagon here. The fight is not over, friend. As ringside physician, the cut man, looks like Leon Tabbs, attempting to Vaseline close the cut on Gary Goodrich. Oh, the crowd is cheering now here for Dave Benatar. They might have replayed a slam, I'm not sure. Somebody says it's over. There will be no OT. We're going to the judge's decision. No, the referee has stopped the fight because of the cut. Oh, okay. Alright, Mark Schultz has won TKO. I think he was fine, to be honest. I think based on the legislation issues, they were just trying to play it safe and contain the amount of blood spilled on the Octagon trademark canvas. Koji Kitao. Considering Koji Kitao's incredible accomplishments in his home country, Yokozuna Sumo, competing in the UFC was quite an honor to Campbell McLaren and company in the Ultimate Fighting Championships. Actually, it was probably Art Davie that had brokered his entrance. He'd been looking for high-level sumo competitors, and the action begins since the opening air horn in the very first show. Kitao coming out with a strange stance. But this fight was to follow the tradition of tragic showings for sumo wrestlers. A touchy-feely, grabby type of stance. In this realm of NHB, it seemed. Mark Hall attempted to come in, rebuffed by the big sumo. Oh, Kitao has Mark Hall against the cage now, with an underhook. He's got a double... no, he's got a single... Oh, he's landing a big punch here to Mark Hall. No matter how turbo E Honda got, he picks him up. Oh, Koji Kitao has slammed Mark Hall down on the mat, and he's in half guard about to... Still got nowhere. About to pound him out. John McCarthy stopped the fight here for a moment. Koji Kitao is bleeding. Whoa, Mark Hall is absolutely covered with the blood of Koji Katao. Oh, they're calling a stop to the contest. Oh, Koji Katao. At a moment where he was just about to lay the power down. Called off. The question is, what was the blow that caused the break? Alright, here in the replay. This is the slam here.
And then Mark Hall
Almost broke Mark Hall's leg here.
his life having just flashed before his eyes.
But immediately,
I imagine,
John McCarthy shoots in and stops the fight.
proposes to his girlfriend over television.
We don't have a camera angle of this?
Carpe diem.
Mark Hall has proposed to his girlfriend, Laura.
And hell, while you're at it, why don't you carpe noctem too? The fight of the night was Don Fry versus Amari Batesh.
From Carlson Gracie Academy.
Gracie Jiu-Jitsu black belt,
Looking like
and late replacement for the injured Marco Ruas.
Vitor Belfort's.
And not to give too much away, but it's probably a great idea of Marco Ruas not to go into that fight with an
Slightly
injury.
retarded little brother against Don Fry, the returning champion
In fact, I won't say too much about this bout at all,
from the David and Goliath tournament,
except that
looking like
performances like it sear their way into the minds of the fight fans.
Tom Selleck's slightly retarded little brother.
They give us strength when they boil up from the bottom of our soul in
Amari
times of
Batesh bearing up
intense
Don
torment,
Fry with the
and
gloves.
see our way to the other side of hell.
Batesh immediately comes out with the low kick and jumps up and pulls guard when he almost gets thrown by
Was that too dramatic?
Fry.
Batesh
Batesh has double underhooks and Fry against the fence, who is rabbit punching him in the back of the head, saves the takedown by grabbing the fence. Amari Batesh is a Tasmanian devil here in the clinch, punching the body of Don Fry. Don Fry once again, a grip on the fence, saves him from the takedown. He's kneeing the body of Batesh, who tied up a leg, viciously going for this takedown here. Don Fry with the deep wizard almost throws Batesh to the mat in the center, but he turns it around. Now Don Fry's turned it back around. Now Batesh turned it back around with Don Fry's back exposed to the cage, using the fencing to keep himself from getting thrown. And now he's sprawled down with the wizard, snapped down the head, but Batesh has stood back up and has pushed Fry back against the fence once more. Another body punch from Batesh. Over the top from Batesh, big right hand. Now Don Fry, knuckling the ribs. Under overs, Don Fry, walking against the perimeter, attempting to establish dominance. Uppercut from Amari Batesh lands. Oh, throw for Don Fry. Uchi almost gets Batesh to the mat. Batesh is on his knees now. He's stood back up. Oh, a 1-2 lands for Don Fry, who's thrown Batesh into the center of the octagon. Batesh going for a single. He's put his head in bad position. Don Fry is sprawled on him, has control of the far ankle, and he's punching now to the body, elbowing to the soft organs. Fold up sprawl from Don Fry, and Batesh is attempting to pull guard with an underhook on his left side, and he's fighting to the he's punching Don Fry's head here. Full guard for Amari Batesh. Don Fry attempting to get some separation to punch here in the open guard. He's standing up, attempting a footlock. Batesh escapes. Batesh rolls over. Don Fry with front headlock position, attempts to guillotine, but Amari Batesh pulls his head out. He's standing in the center, still dazed. Oh, a big overhand from Amari Batesh may have knuckled Seven in the temple. Don Fry in the temple. Oh, uppercut lands for Batesh and is exchanged by Fry. Oh, it's a shootout here in the center, but Don Fry's getting the best of it. Don Fry getting a knee in after a solid double 1-2. Alright, he's pushed Batesh against the fence here. Oh, he's uppercutting again. Batesh shoots for the double, but he's rebuffed. Don Fry sprawls on him, is now punching again with his left in the front headlock position. Batesh pulling guard again, pulling half guard. Don Fry. Oh, Don Fry, big knee to the face here. He's using those knees to quite good effect as he's flattened out Amari Batesh in his half guard. Batesh slapping knuckles over the top. Oh, big elbow for Don Fry. Another big elbow. Left elbow in half guard here. And he's elbowing again. Short chopping elbows. And short clubbing punches. Skeletal grip is keeping Don Fry's posture broken for Amari Batesh. Oh, he's escaped that now, but he's still in the full guard. Batesh has a sort of lazy overhook on one arm. Not quite wrist control is what I'd call it. And Fry elbows his way out of that. Rabbit punches in the back of the head land for Batesh. Tripoding for Don Fry has put some pressure on the Jiu-Jitsu black belt here. Don Fry still maintains his elevation. Oh, creating separation with his elbow here. Action is slowed down as they're attempting to establish... Don Fry's just trying to crush the face of Batesh with his forearm as he's now punching the body on the left side. Batesh still breaking down the posture. A can opener for Don Fry, but Batesh just shrugged it off. Fry with the windpipe choke here. Strain all over the face of the Brazilian. Can't quite see what's going on here. Fry attempting to posture and punch, but he cannot do so. The referee implores him to work, and they are both quite doing so. Fry slaps to the body. Fry may have broken his right hand. A big elbow lands for Don Fry. Big right elbow. He may have broken his right hand sometime in those wild exchanges. I think we're going to check on a cut now on Amari Batesh that may have been opened up by the elbow of Don Fry. A cut man and ringside physician are taking a look here. He looks good. He looks fine. Think we're ready to go here? Alright. And the action begins again. No? Oh, he sends him back to the corner, and now we're starting again here. Fry stalking to the center. Batesh attempts to fake down. He gets dropped over by a wizard from Don Fry. Back on his back here is Amari Batesh, attempting to scramble out. The back door, going for a leg, attempting to straighten it out, but Don Fry lands two solid elbows to the back of his head. Now in half guard. Another right elbow lands for Don Fry. Big elbows over the top. Don Fry slowing down the pace here. Oh, a wrist strike to the face of Batesh. Another elbow. Right elbows are landing for Don Fry over the top of Batesh's arm. He's unable to defend these here from this position, holding Don Fry's leg in his half guard. Don Fry flurries until he runs out of energy. He's just going to keep opening cuts on the face of the Brazilian until it's all over. He's attempting a shoulder lock here. He doesn't quite have it set up properly. Big elbow lands for Don Fry. Another elbow. Oh, hammer fist lands for Don Fry. A club over the top. Big body punches. Amari Batesh stuck here in the closed guard. Big John is standing them up again, jerking, dragging Amari Batesh to his feet, sending Don Fry into his corner. Richard Istraco, ringside physician, asking the man if he wants to continue. Amari Batesh is exhausted. And the action begins again. Don Fry walks to the center. Batesh shoots, Fry sprawls. Here in the front headlock position, knees land for Don Fry. 2 big knees. Mitesh is attempting to pull down on the shorts. And knee wrap a Fry. He pushes him to his heels to the fence. But this is not going to help him out. He's going to get kneed here again. As Mitesh. Fry sprawled down on his knees. A slightly better position for the Brazilian. The Fry is walking up the center of the cage, rather, of the chain links, walking up the chain links to attempt to apply a choke. He's out of here. He's elbowing the sciatic spine, the lower spine, the lumbar spine. Mitesh, exhausted, unable to mount any offense, is getting kneed in the dome now as Don Fry walks his leg up the cage and drops it into the skull of the Brazilian. Oh, goodness. 4 or 5 knees now, and he's punching the back of the skull. He's just got to land a few more of these knees here, I feel. Punches again. Oh. I think the referee's stopping the contest again now. Yep, that's it. He's calling the stop to this contest. Don't fall, the winner by TKO. The main event of UFC 9, Motor City Madness. Pathetic by the standard just set by Fry and Mitesh. Shamrock vs. Severn 2, or Severn vs. Shamrock 2, however you want to bill it, is easily the worst fight in UFC history, and perhaps in all of NHB. And there have been some extremely suicidally sad elements in the circus of fistic shit shows. Backstage, before the bout and the pre-fight interview, Ken Shamrock claims his strategy for handling Severn on the feet is to get into his head and misdirect his focus, then capitalize on the mistake once Dan is out of position. Now, I don't know specifically what he would have had in mind to employ as far as these tactics were concerned. Not that I'd ever put much stock in what a fighter publicly declares his strategy is going to be pre-fight, but Dan Severn came to the cage wearing gloves for the first fight ever, flagrantly flying a flag of defiance in the motherfucking face of the punch moratorium, if you want to talk about head games. Now, full disclosure, I'm not watching this fucking fight again. Forbidding punches to the head per se might not have ruined this main event, whereas it had certainly done nothing to diminish the undercard bouts, but let's just say it in no way helped the horror show. I don't remember if Severn actually threw any punches to the head, but if he did, they were completely ineffective, and maybe only aimed at the 4 inches of air in front of his foe's face. They circled, and maybe occasionally played a little patty cake coming into the pocket, but mostly circled for 30 minutes, like insects trapped in a mason jar by a sociopathic preschool kid, refusing to fight even when shaken against the glass by the sheer weight of the crowd's deafening disappointment. Dan Severn won the fight by split decision, but at the end of the night it felt as if nothing had happened at all. The lack of a tournament champion and the failure of the super fight to satisfy in any meaningful way left the show in Detroit a disaster for Semaphore. The next show would certainly feature a return to the tournament format, and in a town that would tolerate their type of entertainment, with little possibility of litigatory tumult. God damn. Did you hear that shit? That sentence tasted like chocolate. What did I say? Oh, no, that's... I forgot I ate a brownie. And I've just had this little piece the whole time.
Next time
Sucker.
on the Cage
The back of my mouth.
of History, Episode 6, The Rise of Coleman.
Actually,
Actually, it's the Wild South.
What?
Hey, that's the name of
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. Episode 6. The Wild South. AKA Rise of Hope.